Hi everyone, I'm Beth from the West Dallas Public Library, and welcome to another episode of True Stories for Kids, where every other Thursday I will read a new biography for you. A biography is a story about someone's life. So all of these stories are about real people, true stories. So 2 weeks ago, I read to you about Lonnie Johnson, the inventor, who is best known for inventing the Super Soaker. Today, I will be reading you the story of Frida Kahlo, the artist. So if you stay till the end, then there's an activity that goes along with that person's life. We have a limited number of supplies in the library, and a lot of them are supplies that you might be able to wrangle up at home, but if you can't, just stop in the library and pick up a kit, or you can call us and set up a curbside pickup to get that kit as well. So they are there while our supplies last. All right, so today's book, as I said, is about Frida Kahlo. This is appropriately called Frida Kahlo. And this story is by Lucy Brownridge. So that is a picture of Frida. Magdalena Carmen Frida Kahlo y Calderon, or Frida to her friends, was an artist. She lived in sunny Mexico. Unlike most artists whose work you might see in a gallery, Frida did not go to art school. Instead, she taught herself. At this time, it was thought that only men could become serious artists. Frida thought that was silly, so she didn't let it worry her. While alone at home, she dreamed of fantastical scenes and turned them into magical paintings. So what I like about this book in particular is that a lot of Frida's paintings are incorporated into the illustrations. Frida liked to paint lots of outfits or versions of herself in the same picture. She did this to show what it was like to feel like lots of different people all rolled into one body. Sometimes she felt like she was a little child, and sometimes she felt like a grown-up. When Frida was a child, she had an illness called polio, and then she had a terrible bus accident. This meant lots of time recovering in bed, which was very boring. To cheer her up, her father made her a special easel. It meant she could paint while lying down. Frida had lots of illnesses in her life, so she became used to painting this way. Sometimes Frida felt on top of the world. When she felt like this, her paintings would be filled with sunny colors and Mexican plants from her garden. Sometimes Frida felt low and frustrated that one of her legs was always more tired than the other. When she felt like this, her pictures were filled with gloomy colors. Sometimes she felt happy and sad at the same time. When she felt like this, her paintings were filled with all sorts of colors. See, that's one of the paintings. At this time, the most famous artists in Mexico were mural painters, who painted straight onto walls. The most famous of them all was Diego Rivera. One day, Diego was painting near where Frida lived. She took one of her paintings to show him. As soon as he saw it, he could tell that Frida was a brilliant artist. The pair became very close and inspired each other. In his work, Diego tried to show a world where everyone was equal. Frida wanted to put the same message into her paintings too. When they weren't painting, they campaigned for people of all races and abilities to be respected equally, and for poor people to be paid fairly. Even though Diego was older than Frida, and she called him her ugly frog toad, they fell in love. In the middle of summer, Frida and Diego were married in the town hall of Coyoacan, Mexico. So this is a portrait that Frida did of the two of them for their wedding. At this time, young married women in Mexico were expected to become mothers and full-time housewives. Frida already knew that she couldn't have children, and she didn't let married life get in the way of her first love, which was painting. Frida was fond of Mexican tradition, but at times it could feel as stuffy as a stiff, frilly dress, and not very her at all. Although her paintings had parts that were realistic, people often said they looked like they were scenes from dreams or nightmares. Well, this annoyed Frida, who would say, "I never paint dreams. I paint my own reality." Often her work is called symbolism because it is filled with symbols or objects that have meanings. Sometimes her work is called magic realism because it shows objects from real life, but with a big sprinkle of Frida's special magic. Frida went to the USA with Diego because he had been asked to paint a new artwork. Frida loved meeting other glamorous artists who admired and encouraged her art, but she also dearly missed Mexico. Three years later, and still in the USA, so that is a long trip, Diego was enjoying success in New York and painting lots of big murals. However, Frida missed Mexico more and more. She felt as though her body was in the USA, but her imagination was in Mexico, so she decided to go back. Frida was so happy to be back in Mexico that she painted more than ever before. She was starting to become well known, and she managed to do something that no one from her country had ever done before. She was given her very own exhibition in New York City. So an exhibition is a special showing where they show your artwork. So if there was a Frida Kahlo exhibition, which there still could be today, there would be lots of Frida paintings all together in one place. In Mexico, Frida made friends with a French poet named André Breton. He loved Frida's unusual painting of a bath and asked her to show her work to people in Paris. This was the first time her art had been so far away from Mexico. The Louvre Museum in Paris bought a painting by Frida. She became the first Mexican artist in their gallery. So the Louvre Museum in Paris is probably the most famous art museum in the world. If not the most famous, it's definitely up there. When Frida came back from Paris, Diego also came back to Mexico, and the pair lived in the blue house surrounded by lots of unusual animals. Many of Frida's animals can be spotted in her paintings. When Frida died, she was still a young woman, but in her short life, she overcame many obstacles. She taught herself how to paint, and she became a famous woman artist in what seemed like a man's world. Although her paintings touch people all over the world, Frida's heart will always be rooted in her beloved Mexico. You can still visit her bright blue house and see where she painted her masterpieces. And here are some of her paintings. All of these paintings were peppered throughout this story. And here's one more page. So, if you like Frida's artwork, I encourage you to stop by the library. We have a lot more books on Frida Kahlo that you can check out. Or you can find books on her husband as well, Diego Rivera. This book said, he was a very famous muralist. So again, this was Frida Kahlo by that was illustrated by Sandra Dykman, written by Lucy Brownridge. And one thing you may have noticed throughout the book is Frida often wears a floral headpiece. So that is our activity today. So if you stick around, I will show you how I made my floral headpiece, and you can try to do the same. Okay, on to our activity, which today is making a floral headpiece like Frida's. Kind of like Frida's. I bet a lot of them were real flowers, but. All right, so if you picked up the kit, it should include instructions, coffee filters, which look like this, and a headband. You will need from home some markers. If you have a spray bottle, that would be great, and you want water in the spray bottle. Or if you don't have a spray bottle, you're gonna need some water and just kind of drip it, kind of almost make your own spray when we get to that point. And then you're gonna need glue. I'm gonna use a hot glue gun just because it's a little faster, so I can show you what this looks like. But you don't have to, it'll just take longer to dry. Now, just so you know, this project will take 2 days because you have to let your coffee filters dry, okay? So you won't be able to finish it today. All right, so first thing you're gonna do is take one of your coffee filters. You wanna separate them. I think I gave everyone 10. If you have more coffee filters at home that it's okay with your grown-ups that you use, you can definitely use more. But 10 is what I'm gonna have. So you're gonna take one and flatten it out, nice and flat, and then take some markers. Don't use Sharpies, make sure they're regular markers, and you're gonna color however you want on it. Now, coffee filters are very thin, so you might wanna put something underneath just to, so you don't get marker everywhere. But if you're using washable markers, it really shouldn't be a big deal. The other thing, the filters are going to be our flowers, so the edges are a lot more important than the center. You can definitely color the center, but it won't show up as much in our final product. So you can do whatever colors you want, whatever design you want. You can do all sorts of things. Now, after having done this myself, the marker's dead. After having done this myself, I learned that I actually wish I had used more color on a lot of mine. So don't feel like you have to be shy with the color. So once you finish coloring, all 10 of yours, I'm just gonna show one. You wanna find maybe some newspaper, or maybe even do this outside if it's nice out, but something to protect the underside, whatever table you're on or floor or whatever. So like so. So when I did this, because I did this before I videotaped so I could show you, I just put some scrap paper underneath. So you'll have some scrap paper underneath. You set down all of your coffee filters flat so it'll all be done. And then you spray it spray them, let them sit, wait till they're dry. I waited overnight so that I knew for sure they'd be dry. And when you're done, so this is my pile of finished, they're almost kind of, see if you can see, like a tie-dye. I'll show you some more finished. So they turn out pretty cool. Let me get a different design. So here I did kind of like polka dots and dashes. Now, as I said, I really like the ones better where I filled in all of the space with different colors. This is a cool one. I did a rainbow. So remember I said the center's not going to show up as much, so it's really the edges. So if you can fill in all the space, it really looks cool. But this is going to be your design. So once these are all dried out, all you're going to do to make your flower is kind of grab it in the middle and twist just a little bit in the middle, kind of crumple it almost, and then see it looks flower-like. And the more you kind of pinch it, the better it'll stay, like so. And once you have that, you're going to take your headband and glue it on. So you can kind of clump them together, you can spread them out however you want your flower headpiece to look. So I'm going to glue mine on and we'll see what it looks like. Remember I said I'm using a hot glue gun just so I can show you faster, but if you don't have one, that's okay. Use regular glue, it'll just take longer to dry. Or if you're really good with tape, you could try taping them. Just be careful because when you put this on your head, you don't want to tape your hair. For that matter, make sure the glue is dry because you don't want glue in your hair either. So just be careful. Okay, so I'll keep working on mine and I'll show you the finished result. Okay, so as you can see, I have got all, so this is 10 coffee filters that I got all smushed on there. All right, so I hope you made a beautiful flower crown, just like one of Frida Kahlo's. This is what, try not to get glue in my hair. So this is what it should look like when you're done. So, I hope you had fun, and I hope you love your crown. Feel free to send pictures into the library, either on the children's Facebook page or even our website. You can send pictures in that way. We'd love to see what you guys made. I hope you had fun. We'll be back in 2 weeks with a story about Mary Shelley. She is an author. She wrote the story of Frankenstein. So I will see you in 2 weeks for a brand new book and craft activity. All right, bye everyone.